Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American. Devoted to the business of purveying food and decanting wines, Food and Wine Radio is a unique program highlighting not food recipes or wine vintages, but how to make a profit while satisfying America's palates. In this competitive but highly rewarding sector, many men and women have made profits while fulfilling a dream. Food and Wine Insider is all about better managing any business involving food and wine. Each week, your co-hosts sit down with successful restaurateurs, food mavens, winery vintners, store owners, food suppliers, and other leaders in the worldwide industry that centers on foodstuff and wine. In frank give-and-take sessions, guests and panelists talk about the business of bringing healthy and pleasurable foods and wines to others. Your Food and Wine Radio host are Ann Daw, former president of the Specialty Food Association and a longtime food executive who has held senior positions both here and abroad with Kraft Foods and Philip Morris. Don Mazzella, a nationally known business commentator. On each show, they invite leaders of the world's culinary and wine industries to share the secrets of their success. Visit us at foodandwineinsider.com.
As you know, Ann, company transitions are always difficult, but not for the company that started out as a nuts about granola. It is making generational change, and Gail Lanphier and her daughter Sarah are doing this smoothly, and we hear really effectively. And they're here today together to talk about it. So, Ann, welcome to the program, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Don. By way of introduction, I'm going to say a few things. Gail is a registered dietitian nutritionist, and she started Nuts About Granola, now Sarah Snacks, with her daughter Sarah 10 years ago, Gail as the owner and Sarah as CEO. It was recently announced that Sarah is stepping down as CEO for a new opportunity at Wolfgang Confectioners, and succession goes to Gail, which I think is the first time I've heard of a reverse succession, so I think that's pretty cool. How is the transition going?
Well, this is Sarah. Thank you so much for having us. It's going pretty good. It's been in the works for a few months now. We started the transition plan probably 3 or 4 months before the announcement. So it's been a lot of time getting everything ready and making sure that the transition would be smoothly. And I just started at Wolfgang a couple of weeks ago, actually. So just learning the ropes and getting acquainted with everything. But I'm doing a very similar job to what I was doing when I was at Sarah Snacks. So it's a good transition. So
go ahead, Gail.
It's similar answer on my end. It's just learning new things, but it's going well, so we're good.
Okay. You started the business 10 years ago as Nuts About Granola, and I think it was with a private label focus. Could you talk about that approach and some of the work you've done with companies like Martha Stewart?
Sure. So the company actually started as a college project when I was in college, and I started to develop the business in conjunction with my business classes. And when I launched it, I had absolutely zero experience in the food industry, so I really had no idea where the company was going to be positioned. Originally, the plan was to be a brand. I had no idea even what that meant in the food industry. I spent a couple of years just going to some of the food shows and observing and talking with people, and about 3 years into the operation, we had an opportunity to work with a yogurt company to provide them toppings for a product that they were launching, and that sort of slingshot us into the private label world and sort of more of the commercialized world that we stayed in for a really long time. Martha Stewart was one of my early customers that we started working with. They had a couple of different food lines. We helped them launch a granola line. We still do some work with them today. We've worked with grocery store chains. We've worked with brands. We've done quite a bit in the private label space.
You've also worked with grocery chains such as Lidl and Earth Fare. Talk a little bit about some of the projects you worked on with them.
So our focus has always been in the granola space, anything that's similar to granola. So a lot of the projects were around granola and oatmeal, so in that category. So those are primarily the projects that we've worked on. They're interesting. I think those projects are pretty interesting because, you're helping the grocery store chain launch their own brand in a way. So it's in a way similar to working with a branded product, except that it's just unique to one grocery store.
You also have a retail store, Cafe and Market in York, Pennsylvania. It's open 3 days a week. Talk about the challenges of, I don't know whether you were running the retail shop or you're part of this retail shop, and why 3 days a week? I want to understand a little bit more about your retail experience.
I'll let Gail handle that one.
Yeah. The retail store kind of evolved from our roots as a small stand in our local farmer market in York, Pennsylvania, and that's where we started. And then opportunities arose to kind of grow that into our own space, very close to the market, and we developed that, and that was open. We started to bring on more local products. It wasn't just our products. We started to sell some other small food artisans that kind of in the same shoes we were in. So it became kind of a small brand local market for people that live in the area. Since then, and it started limited hours, and then it expanded into six days a week, and now we're kind of gone back to 3 days a week because of a lot of challenges, staffing-wise, and now with me taking in all of the responsibilities, it's just a matter of time management. The 3 days a week that we're open now correlate with the market, our farmers market, that is local to the community, and everybody around there kind of knows that, hey, it's Tuesday, let's go downtown. So we're there basically as an outlet for our local customers, and it's just to keep a presence in the community.
You transitioned the business from Nuts About You to Sarah's Sweet and Savory Snacks under the brand name Sarah Snacks. What was the inspiration behind the change, and tell us a little bit about what makes your snacks so different from what's on the market?
This is Sarah. I'll take that one. So it's Nuts About Granola was the name of the brand, and so started off college project. We started off as a granola company. 10 years ago, the granola category wasn't that crowded, and there was a space for branded granola products. We went the route of going the private label, so we didn't really build a brand in the granola space, and we had some items, branded items that we did launch over the years, and one of them went into Costco. And so after that, we kind of sat down and really analyzed our business, and if we really wanted to have some branded products, we needed a brand that could expand across multiple categories and not just granola. Nuts About Granola name is a very singular product, so we can't really put that on anything else. So the idea was to look at all of the different assets we had, look at our story, look at what made sense, and then rebrand and position our ability to introduce multiple different types of products under a singular brand. For example, we launched a Better For You candy brittle last year, or this year. We have a nut butter that we just launched with another local company as a co-branded partnership. So it just allows us a lot more flexibility to introduce more branded products.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have some distinction in your ingredients. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you talked about the products in your line, what's the characteristics of the products in your line as well?
So our tagline is inspiring mindful snacking. So when we were looking at the repositioning, we also were looking at our values as a company and our values as a brand. And we value clean food. We value wholesome food. We're not a brand that is very specific or tied to one particular diet. We also don't believe in additives and preservatives. So we have a very clean portfolio as far as an ingredient deck. But the number one thing that we focus on when developing any new product is the flavor component of the actual product. So we have a lot of big, bold flavors in our ingredient deck. When we went to revise a lot of our recipes, we really cut the sugar content out of a lot of our products. So we try to keep the sugar content as low as we can while still providing the best taste profile. So those were a lot of the uniqueness elements of the branded items that we wanted to bring to the market.
And I believe you also focus a little bit on protein using non-GMO ingredients, that as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about how you produce the products? Producing a snack and producing something that goes into a jar requires very different equipment. I'm just curious, do you co-pack or contract pack or self-manufacture? And tell us why.
We actually do both. We have a small bakery in our store in York where we do produce small volume of every product except the nut butters. And then should we get an order that is beyond our capacity there, we have co-packers that we reach out to and work with to fill those orders. So, and you're right, it is very different. It is very different to produce a wide variety of products, but it is possible. You just have to have similarities amongst them all, so you can utilize the same equipment and same ingredients. You're not, you have to manage all of that from a cost perspective. So.
There's always a debate amongst entrepreneurs about co-packing versus manufacturing. Some say, well, it reduces the cost of doing business to co-pack because then you don't have to focus on the manufacturing aspects. You can focus on the marketing aspects and the product development aspects. But there's always the risk because you're giving someone your recipe and how proprietary is it and so on. And do you self-manufacture? What advice would you give to an entrepreneur in terms of whether to self-manufacture or to co-pack?
This is Sarah. I'll take that one. So I think that question has gotten a lot more complicated with the Food Safety Modernization Act. That is a big game changer as far as the level of food safety requirements that any company is required to hold themselves to. So it's going to be very difficult for brands to self-manufacture their product once their sales go over $1 million because of the level of documentation and the level of criteria that is now in place. So that I think it's a different question than what would be proposed, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago. Co-packer it's a relationship. So in my new role here at Wolfgang, I am in charge of having the communications and the project management for a lot of smaller brands and guiding them through that process of our first conversation through their first production run. And it is a partnership. It is a relationship. It's we don't have a list of items that most co-packers don't have a catalog. So finding a good co-packer is a very important part of growing a business as a food company. Now, there's also food companies that have very, very, very proprietary technology that they, might be a part of their business model. In that case, it might make sense for them to open up their own facility and building, but that is also dictated on how much capital they have access to, because it's very expensive to be a brand and it's very expensive to be a manufacturer. So when you're trying to do both, you definitely have to have a good financial plan.
Gail, any other thoughts?
Sarah pretty much covered. It is mainly, you have to have the distribution, you have to have the volume, and that's always the dilemma. How do you get there without, investment capital? So if someone is listening to your show and they're very small and they have some great food product that they're making, I would say, the best way to do it is very small scale and test the market. Are people willing to, do they like your product? Are they willing to pay the price? And then you have some data that you could take to the next level and try to find a co-packer to make your product. And maintain the quality.
Sure.
That's very important. Yeah.
There's really lots of stages. The fortunate thing in the food business is there's incubators out there's commercial kitchens out there.
Right.
As you get bigger, you have co-packing, and then ultimately, Sarah, you hit the nail right on the head with FSMA and preventive controls, that you now have to have the controls in place. As a small business, you can start preparing for that, which I think is a good thing, because it's an expensive process. But if you start out with the right controls in place, manufacturer, you should be in a better position. So let's talk a little bit about Sarah's Snacks. What are your plans for going forward with now this terrific brand, Sarah's Snacks? Will you sell the products at retail? Will it just be online? What's your perspective on what you would like to do with the brand?
I'll let Gail handle that one.
Yeah, my plan is to, it's kind of like starting over again. So learning from the past, the plan is to grow the brand through the distribution channels, to get the volume, to go to the co-packers, all the steps we just mentioned, and we are farther ahead at this stage of the game than we've ever been. So that is the plan, is to continue to go direct to consumer through large retailers, and keep an online presence, because there are the smaller products that are new, and right now there's the volume isn't there. So let's test them in the market, and the online market is a very good way to test those products, and move forward to the point where we get to a volume that makes our business, profitable, to a point where we could get investors to grow it even larger. So that's the plan.
You have attended trade shows such as the Fancy Food Show and Natural Products Expo. What have you learned from attending these shows, and what's required to be ready to do business from a retail standpoint?
Do you want to answer that, Sarah?
So with the Fancy Food Show and Natural Products, well, they're both great shows. It really, you can use it for, brands use those shows for multiple different reasons. They could use those shows to, if they're a larger brand, it's a great place to just reconnect with retailers that you're already working with. If you're a new brand, it's a great place to test market the product, to get industry feedback. There's people that go to those shows from the entire, spectrum of the food industry. The one thing, if you're a first-time attender, or you've never been to a show like that, or you've never vended at a show like that, to definitely lower the expectations of how quickly that you will see a return on investment from those shows, because these relationships take a long time. Any major retailer that you're going to get into, unless you already have, you're already set up, it could take a better part of a year to get an item into a retail store, even if they showed interest right away. I think that some smaller brands maybe could sense some frustration, and they're not, it's definitely an investment to go, but it takes time, and it takes going there year after year to really establish those relationships and start to build on what you've created.
I think that's very true, and you've hit really the key points in terms of the perceptions of the shows, because retailers aren't necessarily there to run an order, and you have to be very cognizant of when are they doing their category reviews. You might be way ahead of it, you might be behind it, and it just requires patience and diligence, perseverance, I would say. You are a woman-owned business, and you're part of WeBank, which is Women's Business Economic National Council. What does it mean to you to be part of this organization?
We went through the process, which it's a pretty extensive process to become certified, because there are a lot of major retailers that have diversity programs, and you do need to be certified in order to qualify. So that was sort of, the hierarchy of we could justify the time and expense of doing it. But then it's also a lot of motivation on just making sure that people know that we're a women-owned business, just for the fact that, we want to be a good example for people who are coming up in the future. So.
I always hesitate, just in case Gail wants to say something else, so that's why I kind of read a little bit.
Yeah, through time, we have tried to be role models as a small business to other small businesses. So getting a women's-owned certification, that certainly is a good example as well. There are a lot of women-owned businesses. You probably would be very surprised. I think people would be very surprised at how many women own small businesses. So, it's good to have your own organization.
As the former head of the Specialty Food Association, it's absolutely clear that there's a lot of women-owned businesses.
Yeah.
If you could change anything at all from the last 10 years of experience, what would that be?
Well, I personally, it's always, hindsight is always, a plus, but I wish we would have redone this brand earlier, maybe at the 5-year mark versus the 10-year mark. But,
I
think we took a couple of steps there that we didn't need to take, and it would have been more beneficial for us. I think we'd be farther ahead of the game if we would have done it at the 5-year mark versus the 10.
Yeah, I think I'd say the same thing.
Okay. I think I have time for one last question, because Don already told me. If you could give one piece of advice to a budding entrepreneur, what would it be?
Wow. Sarah, I'll let you answer that one.
Sure. I always give the advice to really do your research. Just because you think you have a great product, or you think you have a certain market share, take the time to do research, whatever level that is, and be subjective about it. Because you can test market the product. There's, like you said, there's a lot of pitch competitions. There's more tools now than ever before in the food industry to get on a stage, to have some sort of platform, to do crowdfunding, to test your market, to test the market for the product before you spend too much time and money and energy, invested into it. So that's always the advice that I give.
Yeah. Be prepared to work hard.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good.
It's not an 8-hour-a-day job when you're trying to run your own business and launch it. So just be prepared for that. Be willing to take it on.
Well, Gail and Sarah, I really have enjoyed speaking with you. I think I could talk to you for the next hour for sure, but I'm going to have Don wrap it up so that we can get your website on Food and Wine Insider, and thank you so much for your time.
Gail, you're the website for your company?
It's Sarah's, that's plural, sarahssnacks.com. So it's Sarah's with an S and then the word snack.
A link to that website will be on Food and Wine Insider tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future Food and Wine Insider program. You can also, by the way, tell us somebody you'd like to hear on this program. But Sarah, do you have a website you'd like to plug?
Sure. Yeah, the website, it's wolfgangco.com, and we specialize in private label manufacturing, co-manufacturing of confections.
That link will also be on our website tonight. And Gail and Sarah, thank you so much for being with us. I love being on this show because I always learn so much from our guests. Thank you so much.
That's on sarahsnacks.com. It's Sarah with an H, just so you know.
To be successful, most restaurant owners require extra capital from time to time. When you need funding to renovate, buy equipment, or manage cash flow, you don't have time to track down financial statements or wait weeks for a decision. That's where Cabbage can help. Cabbage gives small businesses access to a line of credit of up to $200,000. Apply online and you'll get a decision right away. Since Cabbage is a line of credit, you can take the exact amount you need. You never have to reapply to take additional loans, and you'll only pay for the funds you use. Cabbage has helped more than 230,000 businesses from every industry, and with $4 billion in funding, Cabbage is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and was named the Forbes Top 100 Companies twice in a row. Check out Cabbage at cabbageWithAK.com/food-and-wine, and you'll get a $50 gift card when you qualify. That's KABBAGE.com/food-and-wine.
Line of credit is subject to credit approval. See terms and conditions. All Cabbage business loans are issued by Celtic Bank, a Utah-chartered industrial bank, member FDIC.
And now it's time for Anne's comment on the trends in today's world.
Thanks, Don. I thought I would talk a little bit about the Amazon purchase of Whole Foods. I was reading a recent Harvard Business Review article, and the way they thought about the Amazon purchase was saying that they basically bought a network of 456 customer-friendly testing facilities, and that those testing facilities welcome 8 million volunteers each week. Clearly, Amazon has extraordinary experience in using pricing online. They use it either as a tool to communicate, to recruit, or to drive value. It's going to be interesting to me to see how Amazon translates that knowledge to the offline retail world, especially when it comes to pricing. Whole Foods struggled in the last couple of years from a perception of being overpriced. It was losing its customers that way, and it was aggressively promoting its 365 brand, which kind of left a little less room for other brands. But if you look at Amazon, they essentially sell brands online, and with those 456 stores to use as experimentation, it's clear that Amazon will test varying pricing models to recruit new customers and drive value. So what does this mean for brands? Traditional supermarkets are going to find themselves undermined either by the German discounters Aldi and Lidl, who carry very, very few SKUs. They'll also be challenged by Walmart on value and specialty stores who are all about differentiation to provide unique items not available in other channels and to treat their customers as guests. To me, the key will be differentiation. What are the new brands to the market that's really differentiated and desired by the consumer, but still taps into big behavior? Online, Amazon is selling products with brand names, which gives small brands a chance to have an even playing field with large CPG companies who can afford to own the shelf at retail. Maybe indeed how we think of the shelf will now change and provide for more opportunities for small brands to thrive. Consumers they want to know where their products come from, they expect a clean ingredient line, and they want to know that there's a real person behind the product. Hopefully Amazon will learn this as well.
You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Remember, our programs are heard every Wednesday and Saturday on this station via amfm247.com or on iHeartRadio, as well as Roku Television. You can listen to past shows at foodandwineinsider.com.
And here to talk about Spice Island's unique products is Erika Forys. She has an exciting story to tell, and Anne, it's all yours.
Erika Forys is an associate brand manager at B&G Foods, working to build the Spice Islands business. Welcome to Food and Wine Insider, Erika.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Erika, tell us a little bit about you and why you came to B&G Foods.
Well, me personally, I've always been a foodie from the time I was little. And honestly, B&G seemed to be that perfect fit for me. The spice world is something truly exciting to be in. It's ever-changing. It's also great that some spices are so old, but they're now coming back in style again. So it's something that is definitely ever-developing, ever-changing, and just always exciting to be working on this part of the business here at B&G Foods.
Tell us about Spice Islands and its history. It's been around since 1941, and it was bought by B&G Foods in late 2016.
Yeah, so Spice Islands is one of those great older brands that has a long, deep history. It was established in San Francisco in 1941, and we show that proudly that we are still doing the same way we did things back then on all of our bottles by proudly showing established in 1941. And yes, we were recently acquired by the B&G Foods business, and it's honestly been amazing for the brand. It's really given us a lot of time to grow and develop the brand into something even stronger and more passionate we feel about it. And it's been a hugely great part to be part of the B&G family.
What specifically has B&G been able to help Spice Islands to do?
It's been just great because now, since we are part of a bigger company, we have some fantastic brands we could partner up with that we use, whether it's recipe pairings, where we use our pure maple syrup, such as Maple Grove Farms, or just different ways we get to partner with the brands. And we have a huge resource of people here and personnel who have been through the food world and has just taught us so much with the Spice Islands brand.
So tell us a little bit about what makes Spice Islands special and above and beyond other spices that are on the marketplace.
So this is probably the most exciting part of being on the Spice Islands brand, and it's basically because we choose our own adventure when we go through the spice world, and we want to make sure we do everything on the utmost premium side. And the way that we basically do that is we have 4 quality points that goes through for every single one of our spices, and those are our source, our specification, the amount of volatile oils, which I'll explain in a moment, and the process. And basically, with each of those 4 quality points, you could either choose the high road, choose the source that has more flavor, or you could choose the lesser source that might be a little cheaper. But we always want to take the high road on each one of those options, and that's why at the end you have a quality spice that we know we're proud of, we're putting in the bottle and giving to the consumer, and that when they bring it home, they know they're having a fantastic flavor and really high quality spice that they could use in their cooking and just kind of elevate their cooking flavors by using a better spice. And basically with that, we have a facility in Iowa where we do all of our spice processing and bottling, and that makes us have a lot of self-control over what is happening. So we know what goes into our spice bottles because there is, unfortunately, in this day of age, there's still adulteration that goes on within the spice world, but we really try to combat that. Why? By bringing in whole seeds and milling them in-house rather than buying pre-milled seeds because we're knowing exactly what's going into that bottle.
That's really helpful because I think, when I think of Spice Islands, I think of cinnamon, bay leaf, cumin, etc. And I've just learned that you now have what's called Sauteed Sensations. They're seasonings in oil. Please talk about this extension of the brand. So
Sauteed Sensations was something that we launched a little while ago. We're our goal is to really just push the straight spices because we feel like that is the way consumers could truly elevate their cooking and experiment a little bit with it. Because when you're working with those straight spices, you get to make your own blends, make your own recipes, and really just elevate your cooking that way. And with some of the spices you mentioned previously, like our bay leaves, that is a fantastic example of our source because we choose our bay leaf is a Californian laurel leaf, so we domestically source it rather than where a lot of the competition chooses a Turkish bay leaf, where ours is bright in color. It has actually 3 times more flavor than a Turkish bay leaf. So you only have to use 1/3 of our bay leaf to have even more flavor of a whole Turkish leaf. And we have those standout SKUs that do that for each one of our quality points. For like our specification, for instance, on our dillweed, we wait until the perfect time of the harvest where these little yellow buds of flowers bloom on the dillweed, and that's when we harvest because that's when the flavor is at the peak and at the highest percentage of oil within the plant, and that's why we harvest. And same thing that goes with our cinnamon that you mentioned. We have our cinnamon that we bottle is a Saigon cinnamon, meaning it's from Vietnam. So it has a great red-hot candy flavor, and it's so powerful that when you open up the bottle, you smell it instantaneously, and that just means it has a high volatile oil content, which for consumers, it's something that we talk about every day is talking about volatile oils, but basically that just means how much flavor a spice contains. The oil is what really captures just like the natural flavor within a spice. And then our last quality point that I just wanted to touch on is the process, and that's a great example is our garlic powder. So we receive in whole dried cloves of garlic powder, and the way we process them is we mill it down to a fine powder. So it's essentially a flour consistency. So when you're cooking with it, it completely dissipates into sauces or whatever you're cooking at the time, and the garlic flavor just runs throughout your cooking, and it tastes as if you just put a fresh whole clove of garlic in there, but it's super simple, it's super fine, and it's honestly one of my favorite spices to cook with it when I'm at home cooking.
You have a great knowledge about spices, which I think is terrific because a lot of marketers, they tend to think about, okay, how am I going to promote this, but they don't really think about that intimacy with the product itself. I wonder if you could give us some other examples of how you keep your spices fresh origin to the U.S. consumer, and talk a little bit about the shelf life of spices and how people should think about how long that spice should be sitting on their shelf.
Of course. So so obviously we want to keep spices fresh for everyone, and we want to make sure our consumer gets the best, freshest spice when they can. So we do things how I mentioned before, where we bring in whole seeds and we mill them in-house. A great example of that is our cumin, because we take those whole cumin seeds and we bring them in-house. Then we cryogenically freeze them, and then we mill them, which is something very unique that we do in our facility in Ankeny, Iowa. But the way it's best explained is essentially if you would take a lemon and you would like squish a lemon on a table and try to pick up all the juice, the seeds, everything, you're never going to get all that flavor that you just squished out. But if you take a lemon and you freeze it and then you shatter it with a hammer, you have all that juice is still contained within that lemon. So that's exactly what we do with a few of our spices, cumin being a fantastic example. And another example how we keep things fresh is we want to make sure for garlic is dried overseas because it does take a while for it to get to the United States. So we want to make sure during that process it's dried just for quality reasons, because with dried you have a less chance of something becoming contaminated. And when it does get to port here, all of our products go through testing first before even entering our facility, because we want to make sure we're only bringing the highest quality spices into our house before it even gets, as soon as it gets to the port. And speaking of how you store them for household use, a lot of times people put their spices right above their stove, and that is honestly one of the worst places you could do for that, because with heat makes the oils dissipate, which creates less flavor. So you want to make sure you store your spices in a cold, dark place, preferably a cupboard or a cabinet away from the stove. You want to make sure it's dry as well, because spices, when you open up the jar initially, say there is some clumping in there, that means you have a very high quality spice because there's a lot of oil in there. So that's why it's clumped. But if you had your spice for, say, 2 years and it's starting to clump, that means, there's some moisture getting in there. You never want caking on the bottle because that just means humidity was introduced into the bottle. And lastly, when it comes to shelf life, spices have a shelf life for around 1.5 years. Yes, they will never become harmful, but you lose the flavor. You use that true flavor that you want to elevate your cooking with. And basically, I know spices is something that I hear all the time at least, that people have their grandmother's spices, and that's great for a memento, but please don't use them to cook. Just get some new ones. You want to make sure you have you're rotating through your spices at least every 1.5 years for each of your different ones you have in your cupboard.
That was incredibly informative, and organoleptics when it comes to spices or flavors, it's really incredibly important. Can you talk a little bit about the brand's relationships with farmers who grow the spices?
Of course. So we have this wonderful person that works for us, Matt Mylander. He is our head of procurement. So essentially what his job is to travel the world. He gets to go to the Indian markets. He gets to go to China to see the garlic crop. And he basically gets to work with the farmers directly to see what's the new spice that's coming out, what's the quality here, where are we going to source it from there. And for example, with the pepper crop, pepper is really interesting because it's a cottage industry. So essentially when you're buying one bottle of our pepper, you're helping multiple families because each family, say they have an acre of land, they grow as much pepper as they can. And then they bring their 2 or 3 bags of pepper to a collector, and then we purchase from the collector. So you're essentially helping all these tiny families with these tiny farms that all work together to bring to a collector that then comes to us so we could just package it. So it's very interesting where everything is still done the old world way because it's the right way to do it, and we want to make sure we do it the right way. So it's something that's really, at least Matt has a very, very intimate connection with a lot of the farmers that we do business with. It's something truly fascinating.
And do you have a point of view on fair trade specifically?
Fair trade, that is something I don't personally work with, but I know we do have within our R&D department, we have a member on the American Spice Trade Association, which creates all of the rules and regulations for quality standpoint. So that's which is called ASTA. But other than that, I don't have any opinions.
Oh, that's very helpful. Where are you distributed today, and how much of the business is retail versus food service?
So all of our business is retail. We want to make sure we're bringing the highest quality product to the consumer at home. We want to focus on that at-home chef and just have their cooking be fantastically flavorful. We're in a variety of retailers, from Kroger to Albertsons to Publix is one of our great accounts, as well as Meijer. So we span across the entire nation, and it's always we're always trying to expand and grow that distribution one store at a time.
Now, you were talking about this attraction to chefs, and what is your perspective on how you believe millennials think about spices, and what are you doing to attract them to the category?
So I think millennials, right now, they're cooking at home more, they're experimenting more, they're trying a little more flavor with international, and they're being a little more risky with their flavor choices compared to, say, Gen X. They want to really explore, and they want to have the authenticity of those flavors from around the world. So we try to get our knowledge to them in a variety of ways. One, we have a really large social media presence, as well as we have a very beautiful website, spiceislands.com, and we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Spice Islands. And basically with that, we try to post recipes that are fun to use and kind of integrate spices into your everyday cooking and just be a little experimenting here. We have a beautiful, on Pinterest, we kind of do step-by-step recipes where we did a bay seasoning for seafood, and it was just all the spices listed out with what you put in there. So people get to make their own blends at home and kind of get to interact with the spices a little bit and see where those flavors really meld together and what they pair with the best. So it's been truly a really large digital presence to get those millennial consumers out there.
And what are they saying to you? What are they looking for? What are they, as they interact back with you through social media, what are you hearing from them?
Consumers, honestly, are one of our number one things we always hear is our bay leaves, that sometimes they're almost too flavorful because it is 3 times more powerful than the competition. We just say just use a little less. But people really can truly taste the difference. And we've only been getting positive feedback of our quality and our product, because if you just swap out, say, a premium spice with a regular mid-tier spice, you could truly taste the difference in your everyday dishes that you normally cook. You could taste the difference, and your family can taste the difference. So that's what we've normally been hearing from consumers. And they love to share their own recipes. So it's been great to see what people are doing with spices and what interesting things that they're kind of experimenting with.
In your cuisines are hot right now, and how do you promote an understanding of these cuisines to the consumer?
Again, that goes back to now consumers are, with the whole digital age, if they want to know something, they're just going to look it up or Google it. So we've gained a lot of that, because consumers, they are more knowledgeable now than ever before. They know more. They just know so much, and if they're interested, they'll find out more and more. But we still just try to contact with them through the digital. We want to make sure we're showing our education. Sometimes we do spice tips within like our Instagram or our Facebook posts, just so we could keep that education going.
And are there any new products in the near future we should be looking forward to?
Yes, so that's actually really exciting. We have 4 new products coming out this fall. They actually just launched 3 weeks ago. We have 3 new salts, which is a pink Himalayan salt, which is the new hot salt out there. We also have a black truffle salt with Italian truffles in there, and it truly delivers on flavor. It is amazing on French fries and mashed potatoes and steak and all things of that nature. And then we have a Merlot Salt, which this is something extremely unique to the market. It's actually salt that has been infused with Merlot wine. So the color is beautiful. It is a beautiful Merlot color, and it looks fantastic in the bottle. And then our last new product is a Za'atar blend. And that blend is it sounds intimidating to a lot of consumers, but the way I describe it is every Italian family has their own sauce recipe. Their own red sauce recipe, and that's the same thing with the Za'atar blend for the Middle Eastern families. It's just a different blend of spices depending on what country you go in or what family you're even talking to. So our Za'atar, the main ingredient is sumac, but there's sesame seeds in there, and it has like an earthy, citrusy, woody flavor that's just fantastic if you just toast some pita and some olive oil and then sprinkle it on top. It's really delicious.
Erika, tell us a little bit. You were saying earlier that Spice Islands is really premium. I loved your story about how it's sourced, how you work with the farmers. You talked about your 4 specifications. What price? How much more expensive is Spice Islands? Because obviously a good spice, it could be expensive but worth it, and that's what you would want people to perceive. But in the category itself, the brands you sit next to, how much are you really?
So we are generally, if not the most expensive, very on the higher end. But you are exactly what you said. You're getting what you pay for. We do things the right way because it's the best way to do it, but it becomes at a cost because we don't want to cut any corners through our entire process. We always do it the longer way, the way that it's just the best so the consumer gets that fantastic flavor in every single bottle, every single time, and it never wavers. So it is a pricier spice than, say, like your general mid-tier spices, but it's definitely something. Spices are an investment. They're something that you want to, if you're using them every day, you'll truly see elevation within your cooking if you just swap out your some mid-tier spices for the premium ones. And yes, it does come at a higher price point, but it's 100% worth it. I know because I did it myself, and it is. My cooking has never tasted better. At least I like to think so.
I would think that with chefs who are very concerned about their spices, there would be a tremendous opportunity for Spice Islands, especially given how fresh your spices are. Have you thought about a line that's specifically targeted to chefs or the whole white tablecloth food service area?
It's something we would definitely look to exploring. I think right now our main focus is just educating that general consumer, because the chefs know that they know where a quality spice is and what a quality spice isn't, but we really want to just focus on just elevating the consumer's thoughts and making sure they're fully educated, so then from there it will expand upon that way.
And Erika, one last question for you. Can
Sure.
you tell us a little bit about your proudest moment since working on Spice Islands?
Honestly, I love the fact that I have this new spice knowledge, and that I get my favorite part is looking at the trends and seeing what's the next up-and-coming spice, and just seeing how consumers are using spices in new and inventive ways. I love to see just when people do new recipes, and I think more of the research aspect of it, and just truly seeing what's happening out in the world, whether it's the European market, the African market, the Asian market, and just exploring to see what's that new hot and upcoming spice and what's the best way to use it. So I think that's something I truly loved doing, and I'm always excited to learn more, and each and every day I learn something new about spices, which is something, I think it's super fun to say.
You know, I think in speaking with you, the Middle Eastern influence is coming certainly a lot more strongly in prep, food prep. And I think that's right. I think that is having an impact. There's stronger flavors. You mentioned cumin as an example. And I think that's a terrific opportunity for Spice Islands. I'm going to switch it back to Don. I'm hoping he's on the line to close this out and make sure that we have your website information, your information, so that our listeners can learn more about Spice Islands.
Oh,
awesome. Thank
I'm
you so
here.
much.
Believe it or not, Ann, I'm here. I've been listening to this fascinating time you did together. Erika, your website again for our audience?
So our website is spiceislands.com.
Tonight on foodandwineinsider.com, there'll be a link to Spice Island where you can hear this program and every other past and future Food and Wine Insider program. And you can also tell us if you want to hear from someone in the industry that you think would really provide our audience with the type of knowledge that you displayed today. Erika, thank you so much for being with us.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
You are listening to Ann Daw and Don Mazzella, and the program is Food and Wine Insider. If you have a question or know someone you think our listeners should hear, contact us at foodandwineinsider.com.
Ann, you and I both attended the just completed Fancy Food Show. You were the past president of the Specialty Food Association. What did you notice about the show this year that you would like to pass on to our audience?
I think that it's very interesting to me that I'm seeing a continuation of some certain trends. Certainly the whole area of farm to table. I think there's a whole area of health. Everybody is now thinking about how is this product good for me or good for my children? Why? I think there's tremendous paying attention to products being natural. I think we know that the millennials are very, very interested in specialty foods. They like talking about good food. They really pay attention to the ingredient lines. They're doing a lot of online purchasing, which makes them really good, I would say, investigators to products. They definitely want clean ingredients, superior quality. They want to treat themselves. The whole area of protein seems to be, I would say, almost alternate ways to get protein. So you're seeing how nuts play into that, how seeds play into that, how other products play into the whole area of protein. I think that all natural, even though I do believe there's an issue with the whole issue of all natural, the FDA can't really say what all natural is as a claim, and I think it's a place where most product manufacturers shouldn't go, because I think it's very difficult. What does all natural mean? Some people say, oh, I have all natural ginger or vanilla, but the rest of the ingredient line may in fact not be all natural. So there's a lot of confusion around that, but I think natural is meaning much cleaner ingredient lines. Kosher means a lot to people in terms of sort of oversight and cleanliness. I think we're going to continue to see some organic, but probably more plant-based foods. But this whole area of health is sort of permeating everything. I almost liken it to Eastern philosophy. They always think about what they're putting in their bodies is, how is this helping me? How is this good for me? And not surprising, I'm seeing a lot of things with ginger. I'm seeing things with turmeric, digestive, the whole area of digestion and gut. I'm seeing a lot of things that have to do with uses of syrups in alcoholic beverages, whether that's spiciness or that sweetness or different kinds of sweetnesses. A lot of things with eggs. It's interesting. The egg is becoming a bit more of a hero. Maybe it's this alternate protein, but also a lot of things with egg whites. I saw egg white thins. And very importantly, a lot more women in the specialty food business and a lot younger people in the business. Several years ago when I was president of the Specialty Food Association, one of our restrictions is you have to be at least 18 to be on the show floor. And we actually had a 15 and a 16-year-old who had developed a wonderful toffee, and we needed to figure out how they could actually be in the show because they were the manufacturers. They were running the booth. And funny enough, I saw them at this show. They're older now, of course, but we were laughing about that story. But I think it's the perennial enthusiasm and excitement of the youth that brings new products to the market, because they have a whole different sensibility of what's good for them and how they think about food, and what they want in their food and what they don't want in their food. And I think that's really, really terrific. So I think we're going to see more functional foods, whether it's probiotic things with, or the vinegars or cherry juices. We're seeing the cherry juice in terms of its good for you properties. Suja was a product line at the show that had probiotics in it. Making veggies a little bit more fun and more present. There were actually ice creams with veggies in them, and this peeled snacks. I think we will continue to see sustainability in how people think about their products. There was a product that was it used the entire fruit, and it was dried, but it used the whole fruit, so there was no waste. And I think those are the kinds of things that I think are going to continue, and I think it bodes well for the food business. I think ultimately big companies take a look at these things and say, maybe we need to change. I think I see a lot more of the big companies even changing their ingredient lines, getting back to the basics, getting back to what, when we were younger, we just thought of as real food. You know, we weren't talking about natural or organic. It's just how food was grown. I think that's going to continue. And I think how food plays into one's well-being and health will continue to play a role.
You've been listening to Food and Wine Insider with Ann Daw and Don Mazzella. Want to join us on a future show? Contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Until next time, have a passion for food, wine, and profits, and think of our program, Food and Wine Insider.